So I definitely wanted to talk about Kazuto Ioka apparently vacating his WBA Flyweight championship. And this is a pretty big deal because, I mean, he was basically the de facto man of the division, the de facto best fighter, or at the very least, the kind of the torchbearer of Flyweight, especially as far as the aftermath of Roman Gonzalez and Juan Estrada vacating their belts and moving up, of course, which they did in the past year. Not only that, but just the fact that Ioka has been kind of a long-standing. He's like the established guard of the lower weight classes. He's a guy that won titles at 3 different weight classes: 105, 108, and 112. And now it appears as though like there might be some personal issues going on that's causing him to maybe fall out of love with the sport, or possibly be trying to get away from his current kind of promotional and management situation. He's had a number of very public spats over in Japan with his father. He's actually dating a Japanese pop star, a female singer. That's in a relationship that I guess has been very heavily criticized, kind of sensationalized, like a tabloid-esque type stuff, and that has caused a lot of friction with his dad, who also manages him, and his uncle Hiroki Ioka, former champion himself, promotes him. So the family effectively kind of guides his career, and so it just might be a situation, an occasion, not unlike I guess what has happened before sometimes with fighters who are very closely connected with their dads and with their family. Sometimes things kind of go awry a little bit. You've seen that with Roy Jones and his dad, Floyd Mayweather, his dad, even like going to Michael Carbajal with his brother, and the kind of the friction that really affected his career, especially back in the 90s and everything. Ioka is a damn good fighter, and it's really unfortunate because there was definitely some opportunities that have gone by the wayside the last year or two, that he definitely could have made a good amount of money. It would have been high risk, but it would have been high reward as well. He missed out on fights with Chocolatito. He missed out on fights with Juan Francisco Estrada and with Zhou Shiming, even most notably, which in itself was much less of a risk for a very big reward in comparison to like Estrada and Gonzalez, who most people would have and should have favored him to not win those fights. They would have favored Estrada and Gonzalez, rightfully so. But Ioka, he's a fighter that has been pretty much dominant in most of his major fights for the most part. He only has the one loss to I'm Not Run Wrong, close decision loss at that. Has the 2 wins over Juan Carlos Reveco, who himself is going to be fighting against Nari Nietes for Nietes' IBF flyweight title, what's going to be a very good fight, and ultimately may kind of crown the new top guy, or at the very least the second place guy, because now with Ioka's kind of semi-exit, possible semi-retirement, maybe he'll be on the shelf for a little while he tries to figure out exactly what he wants to do with his life, what he wants to do with his profession of boxing, and who depending on what kind of constrictions there may be with him being able to kind of continue his career, in spite of the issues that he has with his dad, possibly maybe having to get out of his contract, his TV contract, and so on and so forth. He's made a lot of money, over the years. He's been the top rated Japanese fighter, in terms of TV ratings, not even just in terms of ratings critically speaking, but in terms of financially. He's been the highest rated fighter up until basically this past year, where Naoya Inoue and Ryota Murata managed to surpass him just barely in this past year. So he's been kind of the long-standing torchbearer for Japanese boxing as it stands, in the international sense, as far as the pinnacle of the sport. So it's kind of unfortunate. It's looking like the vacant title now is going to be contested between, I'm trying to remember the fighters' names, Artem Delakian, I believe, of Ukraine. I think he might be of what you call it, Armenian descent, considering the name, but he's from the Ukraine. And then the next guy in line, Sirichai Tayen of Thailand. I can't think of Sirichai's professional name because I've always called him Sirichai. Matter of fact, I'm going to look it up right now. It is Yadmonkol for Sangdep. Saengtep. Yadmonkol for Saengtep. Yeah, see, that's definitely one of the tougher ones to try to pronounce. But he's actually, he himself is a fighter that has been defeated by Juan Carlos Reveco in the past. You know, a guy that Ioka was able to defeat by, I think it was a majority decision in their first fight, and then he knocked him out in the second fight. I think it was the 9th or the 10th round. Really good fight. Both fights were really good, though. But you could see even just there, like, there's definitely a big gap as it stands, not only for the WBA title, but I think just as flyweight as a whole. You know, flyweight is a wide open division now. You know, I don't really think, especially highly, of Tayen nor Dalakian from what I've seen of both of them. Dalakian's a little bit more of a new name. You know, one of these guys that's kind of had more of an extensive amateur background, but he hasn't necessarily done anything as a pro that really kind of seems like above and beyond what you kind of expect from, you know, kind of a standard contender, like rallying up towards a title bout. He doesn't necessarily look like, you know, the next it guy to me, but you know, he could prove otherwise. Daigo Higa, it appears, is going to be basically the kind of the new torchbearer at flyweight as far as you know, the top fighter goes there. At least I consider him that, especially with Kazuto Ioka's maybe being on the shelf at the very least, if not his exit from the sport. Definitely leaves the door, I think, swinging pretty much wide open for somebody to kind of come across and you know, become the next guy, the next kind of Lord of the Flies, so to speak, the next king of the flyweights. You know, that light flyweight, 108 pounds, has a tremendous amount of names, but the top 10 is just filled with evenly matched fighter after evenly matched fighter, and I could very well see any of those guys being able to move up to 112 and have quite a bit of success against some of the guys that are currently the top ranked, or at the very least the champions there. You know, Sho Kimura, who himself was, you know, being outboxed, I thought fairly handily for the most part by Zhou Shiming until Zhou pretty much ran out of gas. Kimura managed to stop him late. Dani Nietes hasn't necessarily looked as dominant at flyweight as he has been in a lot of his past fights at 108 and 105. And you know, Dalakian and Tayen don't necessarily strike me as like these guys that, you know, like if you're not ready for them, they're going to put you down and put you down hard. You know, Brian Valoria is still plugging away there at flyweight. I could definitely see him becoming a champion once again. You know, he's been around forever now, it seems. You know, but he's still definitely one of the top fighters there. McWilliams Arroyo, if he ever decides to fight again, I know that there was the possibility that he was going to fight Zhou Shiming or Naoya Inoue last year, but apparently those opportunities, I guess, kind of fell by the wayside, and I think he's had some potential issues managerially speaking too. It seems like him and his brother McJoe aren't the most active of fighters, unfortunately, which is, you know, it's sad because really very talented, especially McWilliams. I actually consider him the more talented of the two, but he's the one that never even managed to win the title. Although I'd say that he probably should have. You know, I thought that he defeated Amnat Ronron back when they fought, but I'm going on a crazy tangent now. Hopefully Ioka returns. You know, I think there's still a lot left in the tank for him. He's really a great fighter, man. He's a tremendous fighter. He's definitely one of the more decorated fighters at the lower weight classes. And if it wasn't for somebody like Chocolatito, who kind of went above and beyond in terms of the excellence that he showed across the weight divisions that he showcased his skills at, Ioka, I think, would probably be higher rated in the general sense, and even higher rated pound for pound than he generally is, which he isn't necessarily. You know, a couple years ago, I think he was kind of bordering on that. You know, kind of breaking into the pound for pound rankings, top 10 or what have you. But I think he kind of got quickly eclipsed by Gonzalez's rise to prominence, with the fact that, I mean, Gonzalez had come before him, yes, and in spite of the fact that Ioka rose faster in terms of going from debutant to contender to champion and then multi-weight champion, he did it in a quicker fashion than Gonzalez did. Gonzalez is just sheer excellence over the course of being able to pretty much dominate everybody that fought and dominate, you know, current, former, and future champions the way that he did kind of eclipsed what Ioka was kind of building on in terms of the international audience as opposed to more of the Japanese domestic audience, which Ioka pretty much had cultivated from day one because of the fact that the name Ioka rang through in a lot of the fans' minds, because of his uncle and so on. His uncle Hiroki was one of the first guys to really kind of show and prove the ability to debut as a pro and then be in a world title fight within 10 fights. He was kind of one of those early torchbearers, one of those early trailblazers in terms of being able to, go for the gusto as soon as possible and be able to achieve it and hold on for that title for quite a while as well. At 108 pounds was his uncle Hiroki, but hopefully Kazuto's not losing his love for the sport. I mean, hey, even if he does. Hey, he hasn't taken very much damage at all. He could retire with plenty of money. He's made quite a bit over the last few years. But I mean, he's still a young guy. He's only I think 27 or possibly 28 now. So I mean, I think he still has plenty left in the tank, and it'd be kind of a shame to see him not completely utilize his full potential in terms of being able to, I mean, shit, even just keep making money at the top of the sport, because that's pretty much where he's at. And to me, I didn't necessarily see anybody completely dethroning him anytime soon, unless he was to fight somebody like a Daigo Higa. I'd still favor him over most of the fighters, including some of the guys that I mentioned at 108, like Kosei Tanaka, Taguchi, Kenshiro, etc. Even though those would be relatively dangerous fights, it'd still be very big money fights, very big in the domestic Japanese sense. So. I understand kind of his frustration in not being able to get some of these big money fights, like Zoshiming in particular, as well as possible unifications of Dani Nietes, Estrada, etc. But sometimes it's just not working out for you, and you got to find a different situation to go about your business. Happened to Mikey Garcia, happened to Andre Ward. Maybe we'll be seeing the same thing and saying the same things about Ioka in a couple of years. So that's going to do it for this one, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.